Hey everybody, I'm Elizabeth Turkin.
And I'm Katie Stasaski.
And we want to talk to you about the future of adult literacy education in the United States.
I'd like for everybody to take a moment and imagine how their life would be different if they didn't know how to read. Something as simple as sitting through this presentation would be nearly impossible. But the problems don't stop there. Imagine going to your physician and not being able to read the prescription on the label. Imagine driving through a construction zone and not being able to read the signs as you pass by. Literacy affects so many aspects of our lives, and yet for some Americans, it is simply impossible to do these tasks that we all take for granted.
Well, you may be wondering how big of a problem adult literacy could possibly be in the United States. Can it really affect that many people? Well, today in the United States, 14% of adults are functionally illiterate, meaning they cannot search, comprehend, and use continuous texts. This number also includes a disproportionate amount of minority and underprivileged groups, including 24% of the U.S. Black population, 41% of the U.S. Hispanic population, and a staggering 70% of incarcerated U.S. adults. It's not even necessarily that these people have never received an education, because 1 in 5 of our high school graduates can't read either. What's more, these statistics have not changed significantly in the past 20 years. What is it about the current system of adult literacy education that's failing these people?
We talked to instructors and students at the Washington Literacy Center, a center aimed to provide education to adults wanting to improve their literacy skills. We found several problems with the current system that can be addressed. Teachers want to give their students problems so they can practice literacy on their own at home. However, this is a very time-consuming process. Additionally, teachers have to handcraft these reading comprehension questions, and the entire process is very frustrating overall for the instructors.
Instructors wish they had a tool that would do some of this exhausting work for them. If instructors could spend less time creating materials for their students, they would have more time to spend attending to the needs of individual students, or even relaxing by themselves. They wish they had a tool to generate these questions automatically, to save them time and effort while still making high-quality resources for their students. A tool like this would improve instructors' experience with teaching and make the entire process less of a headache.
But the problems don't just stop on the instructor side. Students often find it hard to find the time to sit down and dedicate time to improving their literacy skills. Additionally, most of the current programs that address this problem are desktop software, and many of these students don't have access to a desktop computer at home to practice their literacy skills. Finally, they find it hard to sit down in a desk environment and dedicate time 100% to literacy skills.
Students wish they didn't need to spend such a long time sitting in front of a desktop computer to practice their literacy skills. It would be easier and less stressful to find time to practice if they could practice anywhere they wanted. It's interesting to note that 52% of those with less than a high school education, and indeed around 64% of all Americans, own a smartphone. If students could practice their literacy skills on a mobile application, they could practice on the bus, in line at the store, anywhere they wanted, and they would have a lot more time to dedicate to improving their skills.
That's where our project comes in. Capital is a system aimed to connect the instructors to the students. Our system takes in reading passages from the instructor, automatically generates reading comprehension questions, and then sends those passages and exercises to the students so that they can work on it on their smartphone devices.
Now let's take a look at the anatomy of our system. We've built a system with 3 distinct parts: the instructor website and student application, which make up Remind, and the question generation algorithm called Text. Instructors use the website to collect and curate materials for their students, and they can use the interface Capital Passages to generate reading comprehension questions. Passages uses our algorithm, Text, to generate these questions automatically, and once the questions are generated, they are sent off to the student app, where students can see and answer them. The responses are sent back to the website so instructors can see their progress. Let's take a closer look at the instructor's part of this system. Instructors log in with their credentials and are presented with a dashboard view summarizing their currently active materials and students' progress. Each instructor can teach multiple courses, which are themselves made up of small lessons called modules. Instructors can create 3 types of modules, which we'll see in a moment here. The instructor, as you see, has several modules in different colors. The instructor can make a practice, evaluation, or survey module. Practice modules show students the correct answers when they submit an answer. They're repeatable, so students can practice them at their own pace without instructors seeing their scores. Evaluations, meanwhile, are tests where scores are important, and surveys are important for information gathering. So the instructor will create a new module here, then they can fill it with the types of questions that they want. Instructors can either create their own questions by hand, using free response, multiple choice, other types of question formats, or they can use our tools to generate reading questions automatically from an English text passage. The instructor puts in the passage and the number of questions they want to generate here in our interface, and then they send the passage off to our algorithm, where we deconstruct it to examine the important information and combine information from different parts of the passage to create intelligent comprehension questions. We'll go into more detail these question types in a minute, but here are some examples that you can see here.
Now let's take a look at the student application side and see what the students are seeing after the instructors submit the questions. The student logs into their device using their unique username and password, and from there they're presented with a list of courses that they're enrolled in, perhaps taught by different instructors. Once they click on a course, they're presented with a view which allows them to see the different types of modules. Here you can see the practice modules, the next tab is evaluation, and the third is survey. Students can then select a module that they want to go in and perhaps practice in. The student is presented with a reading passage that they can read, and additionally, they're presented with the questions that go along with that passage. They're given immediate feedback, that way they know immediately if they're answering a question right or wrong. That way they can look back through the passage and see information that they might have missed and determine what caused them to get a certain question type wrong. Additionally, at the end of the questions, they're presented with their score and a graphical representation of that, and then are directed back to the course page where they can practice that module or a different module again.
So now let's take a closer look at the algorithm that we've created to generate these reading comprehension questions. When an instructor uses capital passages, they input a text passage and send it off to our algorithm. The algorithm takes the plain text of the passage and breaks it up into things that we call facts, important bits of information in the passage, so who is doing what throughout the passage. Once we have all of these different facts extracted from the passage, we put them together in what we call a fact matrix that sorts these facts by the subject who is performing them, so that we keep track of what one person is doing all throughout the passage. So here we see that some people did multiple things throughout the passage, some people did more than others, some people have done the same fact. Mary and Roy both saw a movie. And we put them all together so that we can sort them by subject. Once we have the fact matrix, we can use it to generate simple and complex questions. We'll go over the complex questions in a moment, but here are some simple questions that we can do. If we took a fact like John saw Sam at the garden, we can easily take out the subject and ask who saw Sam at the garden, and know the correct answer, John. This also lets us generate distractors from the other parts of the passage. So if we have the subject removed in a sentence, we can use subjects in the rest of the passage to generate reasonable distractors that the student has seen throughout the passage that might be tricky. Once we have a question, its correct answer, and the distractors, we send that question off to the app as a completed question, and students can see and answer it.
So Elspeth just walked through how our system generates a simple question, but we go much further than that. We can also generate complex questions, which require knowledge of more than one part of a passage in order to answer. So let's take the following example question that our system generated. Which of the following did John not do? With the following answer choices. When presented with this question, the student needs to know that John did 3 of these 4 things, but they also need to know what John did not do throughout a passage. If you look at one of the generated answer choices, saw a movie, 2 of the characters throughout the story did in fact see a movie, but neither of those were John. These types of questions are designed to really test a student's comprehension and make sure that they're truly understanding what's going on as they're reading a passage.
Another type of complex question that we've generated involves deeper knowledge of what one character has done all throughout the passage. So if we ask the question, who saw a movie and was feeling sick, we can look through our fact matrix and find that the correct answer is probably Roy. But there are other characters in the passage who saw a movie. Mary, for example, went home and saw a movie, but Mary did not do both of the actions in the question. So this type of question uses multiple common facts in the passage, but make sure there's only one correct answer. So while Mary did see a movie, she was not also feeling sick, so Mary is a good distractor for this question. And then we can also use other characters in the passage who performed maybe none of the actions in the question. So the student has to keep track of who's doing what throughout the passage and answer the question correctly. I'd like you to take a minute and remember the statistic from earlier, that 14% of adults in the United States cannot read. Imagine what our society would be like if we could cut that number in half. That is a whole 15 million people that would learn to read, the effects spiraling out into every aspect of their lives and the lives of future generations. With Capital, we have the potential to make this change a reality. Thank you.